I call on Government Order of the Day number 3.
Radio New Zealand Amendment Bill, interrupted debate on third reading.
Last time we were debating this bill, Claire Curran had a call. She has 5 minutes remaining to speak if she so wishes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I last spoke about this bill last Thursday night, just to recap very briefly, we are addressing the passage of a bill that's been sitting on the order paper since 2009, following a review that took place of the Radio New Zealand Charter in 2005. So this is 11 years after a review took place, and there is a statutory requirement for a review of the Radio New Zealand Charter to occur every 5 years. So in essence, we have skipped 2 reviews. The legislation before us tonight, therefore, by the time it is actually passed, may be out of date. And I want to put that on the record, and I think what that represents is the lack of commitment that the government has shown towards public broadcasting in this country, and its disdain for ensuring that that we are keeping up to date and taking seriously its role in how our democracy functions and the importance of public broadcasting for public debate and commercial-free discussion and programming. Radio New Zealand operates in very difficult circumstances. As a result, it's been under a funding freeze since 2009. It's doing the best job it can, and that job is pretty good. It's making the transition to a multimedia broadcaster, and it's doing that in difficult circumstances. Unfortunately, the chair of Radio New Zealand revealed to a select committee a couple of weeks ago that it would not be making a funding bid on this budget, and that is very disappointing and sad, quite frankly, Mr. Speaker. Whatever, and Radio New Zealand is also undergoing restructuring while it adapts to a multimedia environment, and that has created some pain within the organisation. We support this legislation. We support the review that took place. We know that the minute this legislation gets passed, it's no doubt going to go into another cycle of a review. So it kind of makes a farce of the whole process. We also note that the Minister submitted a substantial amendment at the committee stage, did not speak to that amendment until briefly in the third reading. The essence of that was to make provision for multi-platform provisions and for the generation of new content-related revenue streams overseas, assuming that they can find any buyers. It's a bit like the BBC versus BBC World, where the commercial arm generates revenue, but the core services are still subject to public service provisions. However, Radio New Zealand does not have any plans at this point that we know of to generate revenue in that way, and is very constricted by its current funding environment. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, would like to put on the record that that there is a private members bill in the ballot called the Radio New Zealand Catch-up Funding Amendment Bill, which does increase funding for Radio New Zealand by around 20 to 25% using inflation and population growth as the way to do that, to make those adjustments. This would make a difference and would ensure that this bill actually did have some meaning when it finally is enacted in making Radio New Zealand the efficient, meaningful value, providing value to the New Zealand community organisation that it should be, that is properly funded. Unfortunately, this bill before the House tonight rings hollow because of the situation that Radio New Zealand finds itself in.